Some things the Foundation locks behind steel and concrete. Others sit in vaults lined with reality anchors and armed warheads. But a few anomalies exist in spaces no cell can reach, places too vast, too abstract, or too deeply woven into the fabric of existence to ever be contained. These are the 9 SCPs the Foundation quietly admitted they cannot control, ranked from the most intimate failure to the most absolute. SCP-4999, someone to watch over us. Most Uncontainable SCPs want to end the world. This one just wants to hold your hand while you die. SCP-49999 is a humanoid entity in dark formal clothing that sits down next to a person who is about to die, offers them a cigarette, and stays with them until it's over. That's it. That's the whole anomaly. No violence, no reality warping, no tentacles. Just a guy in a suit who shows up when nobody else will. But here's the thing, it doesn't visit just anyone. Every recorded subject has been impoverished, homeless, alone, lacking family, lacking accomplishments, people that society already forgot about long before they stopped breathing. SCP-4999 exclusively appears to the socially invisible, and the Foundation literally cannot study it. Observing a potential manifestation automatically prevents it from happening. If a researcher is in the room, 4999 doesn't show. If a camera is actively monitored, nothing. You can't assign an agent to every forgotten person on Earth, so containment procedures are basically confiscate any camera footage after the fact. They classified it as effectively self-containing, which is a very polite way of saying we have zero control over this, and we never will. What makes this one hit different is the response data. No subject has ever recoiled from SCP-4999. Not once. Many actually adjusted their posture to reciprocate its touch. Depictions suggest this thing has been doing this since deep prehistory, quietly sitting with the forgotten dying across every civilization that ever existed. It's the gentlest containment failure possible. But if you think the Foundation's helpless against something this kind, wait until you see what happens when the thing they can't contain is 8,000 kilometers long and the entire country you're standing on is its back. SCP-169, the Leviathan. So we just talked about an entity that can't be contained because it slips through the cracks of human loneliness. Now imagine something that can't be contained because it is the cracks, and the ground, and possibly the island you're standing on. SCP-169 is a marine arthropod estimated to be somewhere between 2,000 and 8,000 kilometers long. For perspective, that's roughly the width of the entire continental United States. At the high end, it could stretch from New York to the middle of the Pacific Ocean. It is, put simply, the largest living thing the Foundation has ever documented, and it's been alive since the Precambrian era, hundreds of millions of years old, predating most complex life on Earth. This thing was swimming around before fish had jaws. Here's where it gets uncomfortable. The Foundation believes that entire island chains are resting on its back. People live on this thing. They build houses on it. They go to work on it. They have zero idea that the ground beneath them is breathing. And it is breathing. Every 3 months, its respiratory cycle causes minor seismic shifts in nearby terrain. Those little earthquakes locals chalk up to tectonic activity. Might just be the Leviathan exhaling. The Foundation's containment procedure is essentially keep watching it via satellite and hope it stays asleep. It moves less than 1 kilometer per week. Nobody knows how, nobody knows why, and nobody has a plan for what happens if it wakes up and decides to roll over. Because if it does, you're looking at continental scale tsunamis and the sudden disappearance of island nations that were never really islands at all. You can't build a cage around the environment itself. The Foundation knows this. Their file basically admits defeat in the first paragraph, but at least SCP-169 is sleeping. The next one on our list is very much awake, actively repairing itself, and pointed directly at Earth. SCP-2399, the malfunctioning destroyer. You know the Great Red Spot on Jupiter? That massive storm that's been raging for centuries? Yeah, that's not just a storm. Buried underneath all that chaos is a mechanical superstructure armed with antimatter weaponry capable of ripping holes in space itself. And it's broken, which is the only reason you're alive right now. SCP-2399 is an alien war machine of incomprehensible scale. It was on its way somewhere, likely here when it slammed into Jupiter and crashed into the atmosphere. The impact damaged it badly enough that it couldn't finish its mission, so instead it started fixing itself. As of current Foundation models, it's at 59% repair completion, and the repair rate is accelerating. You don't need to be a mathematician to see where that trend line ends, but here's where it gets genuinely terrifying. SCP-2399 is constantly receiving transmissions from the Triangulum Galaxy 3 million light-years away. Someone out there is sending it orders, and those orders? Proceed to Planet 3 in system. Planet 3, that's us. Some civilization we have never met built a planet-killing machine and aimed it at our front door. We're a target in somebody else's ancient war, and we don't even know what the war is about. The only thing stopping those commands from getting through is the Foundation's barrier satellite array, a ring of satellites playing cosmic call blocker between Earth and annihilation. That's the whole plan. The entity is declared indestructible by human means. Limitless power supply. Autonomous repair drones crawling across nearby moons, scavenging parts. The Foundation's backup plan is basically hit it with the biggest EMP we can build, and then nuke it repeatedly, which is less a strategy and more a prayer with extra steps. If repairs ever hit whatever critical threshold triggers activation, SCP-2399 executes an SK-class barren Earth scenario. Not destroys a city, sterilizes the entire planet, every living thing gone, and every year that repair percentage ticks a little higher, which is, not ideal, but if a broken alien superweapon with a cosmic remote control sounds bad, wait until you hear about a self-help book that almost ended reality, SCP-1425 Star Signals. Most SCPs on this list are things you can point at. A creature, a machine, a cave. SCP-1425 is a self-help book, and it might be the most dangerous thing we've covered so far. Published in 2005, Star Signals looks like every other motivational paperweight gathering dust on your aunt's coffee table. It teaches the 5-step Star Signal method, a series of exercises designed to help you achieve your dreams. Except the exercises aren't directed at your mindset, they're directed at stars, actual celestial bodies. You're performing rituals aimed at points of light millions of miles away and calling it self-improvement. Here's the thing, it works. Readers who follow the full method achieve their stated desires at roughly an 80% success rate. You do the star exercises, you get the car, you get the promotion. Reality just bends around you like it owes you a favor, which is, not ideal. But about 60% of readers develop Ojai syndrome, a severe psychological and possibly ontological condition. We're not talking about feeling a bit off, we're talking about your relationship with reality itself becoming compromised. And the exercises visibly alter the appearance of the stars you're focusing on. Your desire for a better apartment is literally rearranging the sky. Now scale that up. One reader is a curiosity. 1,000 readers is a problem. 100,000 readers is space-time starting to buckle under accumulated reality distortion, and you can't just lock up one book. Because the Fifth Church, the cult behind Star Signals, weaponized self-improvement culture to distribute it. They embedded themselves in celebrity networks, turning famous faces into unwitting delivery systems for reality-warping propaganda. You're not fighting an anomaly, you're fighting a bestseller spreading through channels the Foundation has zero authority over. Bookstores, talk shows, Instagram recommendations from people with blue check marks. You can contain a monster. You can't contain a cultural movement, but at least Star Signals needs readers to cause damage. The next entry doesn't need anyone at all. It already killed everything. SCP-2935. Oh, death. This isn't a monster. It's not a weapon. It's not even really a threat in any conventional sense. It's an answer key to a test nobody wants to take. Underneath a cemetery near Joppa, Indiana, there's a limestone cave. Inside that cave is a space-time anomaly, a doorway, and on the other side is Earth, our Earth, exact copy, same geography, same infrastructure, same Foundation sites with the same personnel files in the same filing cabinets, except everyone's dead. Every living thing on that version of Earth stopped existing on April 20th, 2016 between 0300 and 0400 EST. Not just biological life, machines stopped, computers froze mid-operation, automated systems, AI processes, anything that could be described as lifelike or sentient just turned off, simultaneously, globally, no warning, no visible cause, no survivors to explain what happened. Here's where it gets complicated. Radio signals picked up from inside SCP-2935 include communications from that world's Foundation personnel. They had their own containment protocols, their own O5 council, their own mobile task forces. And in those final minutes, they were trying to figure out what was happening to them. They failed. An entire Foundation, with all their resources and anomalous countermeasures, just stopped being alive one morning between 3 and 4 a.m. The Foundation can't contain a universe. All they can do is quarantine the portal and make sure nothing crosses over that might carry whatever did this. But nobody knows what this is. There's no pathogen to identify, no weapon signature to trace, no anomalous entity to blame. It just happened. And that's the real horror. Total instantaneous annihilation of all life has already occurred once, in a reality identical to ours, for zero discernible reason. Every single day the Foundation doesn't understand the cause is a day where our reality might already be past the point of no return. There's no countdown, there's no timer on a wall somewhere. The clock might have already hit 0, but if the idea of an invisible, unknowable extinction event keeps you up at night, wait until you hear about the one with an actual date stamped on it. SCP-2700 Teleforce Nikola Tesla built a lot of things during his lifetime: alternating current, radio, a reputation for being the internet's favorite misunderstood genius. But in 1934, he built something he absolutely did not understand, and now every single person alive is paying for it. SCP-2700 is a directed energy weapon, or at least that's what Tesla thought it was. The Foundation discovered it in 1946 inside a secured research facility, and on the surface, it looks like exactly what the schematics describe: a particle accelerator designed to project energy at a target, a death ray, classic Tesla. But here's where it gets complicated. The device's core assembly was supposed to contain plasma. It does not contain plasma. What it actually contains is a discrete energy phenomenon called SCP-2700 Omega, and Omega does something that should not be possible. It reverses entropy within its boundaries. Energy moves from disorder to order, effectively running the local flow of time backwards. The only thing preventing this from escaping is the frame and transparent sphere surrounding it, which are somehow uniquely immune to its effects. A glass ball Tesla built 90 years ago is the only reason the universe still exists in its current form, because if Omega breaches that core assembly, an irreversible chain reaction converts the entire universe to inverted entropy. Everything collapses into an infinitely energetic singularity. Not just Earth, not just the solar system, everything. And here's the part that makes this genuinely one of the cruelest entries in the entire SCP database. The device has been armed since 1934. It is set to activate in 2234, exactly 300 years after initial arming. A fixed countdown, the Foundation cannot safely disarm, because any attempt to disassemble or tamper with the device risks destabilizing Tesla's original containment, the same containment keeping Omega from eating the universe. So touching it might end everything, but not touching it definitely ends everything in 2234. The doomsday weapon is the containment unit. Every solution is also the apocalypse. At least with SCP-2935, the threat is ambiguous. SCP-2700 gives you a date, it gives you a year, and it dares you to do something about it. But if you think a universe-ending time bomb is bad, wait until you encounter something you can't even think about without dying. SCP-3125, the core. Every other SCP on this list has a containment strategy that at least pretends to work. A cell, a satellite array, a countdown you can plan around. SCP-3125 doesn't get any of that, because the containment strategy for SCP-3125 is enforced ignorance. And if you think about that for more than 10 seconds, you'll realize it breaks everything the Foundation stands for. Here's the setup. Site 41, first floor, a 10 meter by 15 meter by 3 meter cuboidal room clad in lead, soundproofing, and telepathic shielding. One person enters at a time through an airlock. They spend time inside with whatever SCP-3125 actually is. Then when they leave, the airlock floods them with amnestic gas for 3 full minutes, wiping every single thing they learned while in there. No notes leave, no photographs, no recordings, no electromagnetic signals, no particle transmissions, no ESI emanations. Nothing coherent exits that room. Senior Anti-Memetics Division staff are required to visit every 42 days to maintain containment. They walk in, do whatever needs doing, walk out, forget everything. Every 6 weeks. Forever. A ritual of forgetting performed by people who don't know why they're performing it. And here's where it gets philosophically impossible. A true description of what SCP-3125 is, or even an allusion to what it is, constitutes a containment breach, not a security risk, a lethal cognitohazard. The act of accurately thinking about this thing and then communicating that thought kills or incapacitates the mind attempting it, which means the Foundation cannot write an SCP file about it, cannot research it, cannot share findings between departments, cannot build institutional knowledge. The entire operational model of the SCP Foundation relies on documentation, shared procedures, and accumulated understanding. SCP-3125 weaponizes all of those things. The tools of containment are themselves vectors of infection. So what you're left with is an organization that must contain something it cannot know, cannot describe, and cannot remember encountering. The file exists, technically, but it's empty in every way that matters. The Foundation's greatest strength, its obsessive documentation of the anomalous, becomes its greatest vulnerability. You can't secure what you can't think about. You can't contain what kills you for understanding it. You can't protect anyone when the protection itself is the threat, but if you think a cognitohazard that weaponizes knowledge is bad, wait until you meet an entity that rewrites knowledge, reality, and the narrative itself whenever it feels like it. SCP-381. A voice behind me, Sam Howell was a person. That's the part that makes this one stick with you. He was a non-anomalous man who lived a life, died in 1996, and then just stopped being dead, rose out of his grave and disappeared. And from that moment forward, reality itself became negotiable. Here's the thing about SCP-3812. Every other entity on this list has some kind of upper limit, some theoretical ceiling. 3812 doesn't have a ceiling. It retroactively alters events throughout time. It removes containment cells from existence. And if the Foundation sends a team after it can simply change reality so that team was never assembled in the first place. Not destroyed, never existed. There's a difference, and it's an important one. The Foundation classified it as Kadare. Its current location is unknown, its form is barely humanoid anymore, and it is, at best, uncontained, which is a generous way of saying we have zero idea where it is, and that's all we've got. But here's where it gets genuinely tragic. SCP-3812 suffers from a severe and progressively worsening mental illness. Its mind is fractured, perceiving multiple realities simultaneously, unable to distinguish between layers of existence. And every time its perception fractures further, it doesn't just lose coherence. It rewrites the universe to match what it thinks it sees. The delusion becomes fact. The fact becomes the new baseline. Nobody remembers it was ever different. That's the part that should keep you up at night. The Foundation cannot know how many times reality has already been rewritten, because clean alterations erase all evidence. Every memory, every document, every containment log you've ever read about this thing might be version 400 of a reality that looked completely different an hour ago. The Foundation hasn't shifted to containment. They've shifted to damage mitigation, which is an institutional admission that you cannot contain something that edits causality. You cannot build a cage for an entity that can decide the cage was never built. All you can do is monitor what you can and hope today isn't the day his mind fractures badly enough to collapse everything holding multiple realities together. Sam Howell was a person. Now he's a god with a shattered mind who doesn't know he's rewriting everything. I don't know what to tell you, but if one man's broken mind unraveling existence sounds bad, wait until you hear about the entity that doesn't need a mind at all, because it is the idea of destruction. SCP-001, the Scarlet King. Every other entry on this list is a thing, a creature, a machine, a book, a broken man rewriting physics. The Scarlet King is not a thing, it's an idea, and that's exactly why the Foundation has zero chance of stopping it. SCP-001 is classified as a conceptual entity created at the boundary between the modern and pre-modern worlds. Not born, not summoned, created the way fear is created or guilt, across dozens of completely unconnected cultures, civilizations that never shared a single word of language. The same figure appears in art and oral tradition, a massive red creature wearing a golden crown. Every time. Here's where it gets complicated. The Scarlet King isn't sitting in a cell, it exists in several alternate dimensions simultaneously, unable to cross into the prime dimension but spending thousands of years trying. And while it can't get in, it can reach through, pulling strings from the outside like a puppet master working through a wall. The leading interpretation is that the Scarlet King is nihilism itself, retroactively implanted into ancient history by human thought. It didn't just appear in those cultures. It rewrote history so that it had always been there. If it ever fully enters the prime dimension, the result is a narrative scale collapse where reality gets subordinated to blood, tyranny, and the absolute certainty that nothing means anything. The concept of normal stops existing, and the Foundation's response. Anyone who tries to change its classification gets immediately dismissed from the O5 Council. No discussion, no appeal. The file essentially says, "Don't touch this," and refuses to explain why. That's what makes this the final entry. Not because the Scarlet King hits harder than SCP-3812 or ticks louder than SCP-2700, because the Foundation's entire philosophy, secure, contain, protect, assumes things can be understood and controlled. The Scarlet King is the living rejection of that assumption. It is the idea that things fall apart. That containment is a lie. We started this list with SCP-4999, a figure that holds a dying person's hand. We're ending it with a concept that wants to unmake the reason anyone would bother holding that hand in the first place. I don't know what to tell you. Some things can't be contained because they're too big or too fast, and some things can't be contained because they're the reason containment fails. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on the screen now.